Okay, we are here in Senate Institutions. It's Thursday, April 3rd, and we're starting an hour later than we intended. So we won't have as much time. John Gray is not able to be here. Scott Moore is here. What we're going to do is we're going to get as far as we can on a walkthrough of H 494, which we actually received today. So we have possession of the bill. So that's the capital bill, which is our primary bill in this committee. And so I will let you take over now,
Thanks,
Scott, if you are ready to.
Good
Thank you.
afternoon, committee. For the record, Scott Moore, the fiscal office. My apologies, and I do have another appointment at 3, so I'll have to leave, but without John here, there's some of the legalese and language that I begin to speak to in the bill, specifically like section 1 outlays the intent of the bill. But then once you get into sections 2 through like 20, it really just follows the spreadsheet and kind of outlines what's in the spreadsheet. So I think we can go through the spreadsheet and I can go line by line, or we can just talk to the changes that were made. Basically, I want to give you a primary update as to how this spreadsheet is laid out versus the spreadsheet with the House had. So starting there, one thing I did do is at the very top, you can see I put a draft in the very top left-hand corner, just because this is our new draft. That little word draft is there. I also put updated in the date and time, because when things go fast and furious, I want to make sure we're up to the right version. And then in the middle there, you have version 1 kind of in red. So that way later on, if we have version 2, 3, 4, 5, the House had 5 different versions as you went through. I want to make sure you can easily identify which one of the spreadsheets is the most current spreadsheet.
Good idea.
This does have 6 pages. The House had 4 pages. I didn't add anything. I scrinched things. The technical scrunch term. I took the column that was all the descriptions, and I made them narrower and taller to be able to get the green section in, which then of course pushes things to multiple pages. So I don't want you to think I was trying to sneak anything on you. It's the same numbers. It's just presented a little bit differently in terms of the format.
We would never think you were sneaking.
What she said.
Again, we have the gray section, which is what the governor had recommended. This burgundy section is what the House had changed. In the House version, those highlights are much brighter yellow. Here, I muted it a little bit just so it doesn't distract from when we make our changes here in the Senate. We'll use a brighter yellow so we can see it. I did want to make sure that they were there so you can kind of see the changes have been made. But I wanted to be able to really identify when we make our changes, things are brighter. And then finally, over here on the very far side, those columns, and my apologies, I can see a typo already. The very header, G, H, I, J, and K on the green, I duplicated that, my apologies. So we have in the House, G, H, I, J, and K, and in the Senate, G, H, I, J, and K.
So LMNOP.
So it would be, yes, LMNOP. I'll make that change. There's always something that's always more fun and embarrassing for us when we catch these things in public on YouTube. My wife says, keep
Well, you got it over with.
We're
gonna
Yeah.
blame it on the printers.
the printers under.
Yeah.
The ticket.
So with that said, I did add 5 columns to the right-hand side. I basically copied and pasted and changed the colors. This is the section we're working in these columns over here, the elemental P columns. So anything that we make change here, I'll highlight for us. If we make that change that is different from the GovRec and the gray or the House and the burgundy, I'll make sure to highlight that. So that way we can see that. Any questions about the general format of this? I think it's relatively simple to understand. I wanted to give you that primer. With that said, we can start walking our way through, and I can speak to what I know, or we can just skip to different sections if you have different questions. It does start with section 2, and this was section 1 to section 1 of the actual bill is the intent language that establishes the bill itself. So the spreadsheet does start with section 2. And the very first section is buildings and general services. So the first line is the statewide major maintenance. This is where the BGS will go around the state and fix the things that needed fixing, as it were. The GovRec had $8 million in the cash fund, which you can see on column C, and $8.5 million in bonded for FY27. The cash fund was for FY26 by the time. The House felt that for a variety of different reasons, they should move that from cash to bonded dollars. Because some of these projects are smaller, if they go someplace and do a paint job or, fix beading around a room, something like that. They might get lost if it was cash, so having a bonded dollars make it easier to track some of the projects. The number is a little bit of an odd number, $7,138,000, not really rounded. And that's mostly because after the different changes they had made along the way, moving those dollars over really was the easiest to just move that lump from cash to bonded in that dollar amount. There's no specific reason for it, other than the fact that, as you see later on, there's some other things that with the reallocations of cash and bonding, there were some odd numbers to make it all balance. That's why it's 7.1.
Okay, so just to confirm, so it was because of the nature of the size of the programs. That's why that
Pretty much.
decision was made. It wasn't that they're not in favor of any of those programs.
No, there's more, and I'll try to avoid speaking to the House Committee's intents per se, and more give you the facts of what had happened. And what they had said basically was, it's a BGS line item for a lump sum to do lots of different things, and they wanted to make sure they didn't lose track of any major projects in there. So they moved that for capital bond.
Okay, Senator Amos?
To that $7.138 million that was cash, then now it got to bonded. Does that stay within the bill?
Yes.
Okay, so that we didn't lose that cash at that point in time right there.
Let me retract my guess to say, I think part of the, and I don't want to say the $7 million that we were robbed, it might have triggered out there. I'll show you definitely where 3 million came from. You can see that, but realistically, it was 8 million in cash, now it's 7 million, so we only would have lost, I don't want to say lost, but we would have ended up having a differential of 700,000.
And I don't want to get ahead of you as far as your presentation. I'm not meant to be to get ahead of you and no gotcha, no trick moments or anything like that.
Absolutely right.
But as far as the bonding capacity, because we know that we have we only have so much bonded capacity based on what is been given to us.
Mhm.
Where did that extra bond money come from? Did it come from other parts of the bill, or did where did that bonded capacity come from?
It came from a couple different areas, one of which was, and I happened to just move to the very last page, you can see here. In total, there was bonding capacity of 50 million for FY26 and FY27. You can see that there. Basically in columns B and D. Plus there's $6 million from the bond premium.
Almost 7, yeah.
Yeah, almost 7. Plus, there were other bonded projects that had reallocated bonded dollars of about 5 million, which I think might be, for you. I think that from the previous, there's almost $5.1 million in reallocated money.
Mm-hmm.
And then the committee had found some other monies as well for going through the process. So it ended up being about.
So you got 7 and you got 5, so you got just shy of $12 million versus new bonded dollars that you have from the bond premium and reallocation.
Yeah, we ended up having not quite.
And so we just lost almost half of that right here. So you got another 8 million kicking around someplace, or almost $8 million.
Right, which I can show you where we move things back and forth.
Okay.
Okay, so let's focus on the projects in this one.
So the second item here, the statewide planning units and contingency, there were no changes made from the governor rec in the House. And at any point in time, if you have a discussion, you want me to change something, let me know, I'll mark it, but I think today we'll just go through everything. The third line, the statewide physical security enhancements, again, the governor had recommended $250,000 from the cash fund in 26 and the bonded in FY27 for a total of $500,000. And the House had agreed with that recommendation.
Are those already earmarked, or how, I mean, the enhancements, how do we get to that with projects?
That might be a better question for the procedure for BGS, but I can tell you in general, they would have earmarked something and they would have come forward and said when the capital bill itself gets put together prior to the session, they put forth and say to people, what do you have needed, what are your needs, that kind of stuff, and they compile it. So,
I just want to understand how we got to a particular number.
Yeah, and that we can talk to BGS about.
Okay.
A lot of it's in the book.
yeah. And a lot of these.
But let's just get as far as we can with Scott on the actual numbers that were changed, because then we'll have BGS in to go over in detail all of these.
The next line, the statewide 3 acre parcel, stormwater compliance. The GovRec had been 1.5 million in 2026 and 2027 as well, both of those in bonded dollars. FY 27, the House shaved that by $400,000. Again, I'm trying not to speak to the intent of the committee, but just to tell you the discussions that were had in the room. My notes basically are saying that they had ARPA dollars prior, they had previous money, and the permitting process does take some time, so they might not need that $400,000 in 2027 right now because the permits that were currently in the pipeline, as it were. But also because this is a 2027, they have that right to revisit it when we do the capital bill budget adjustment next year. So the idea was, let's free up some of that $400,000 in this line item here and be able to use that somewhere else. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, nothing changed from the governor recommended. They felt that the governor recommended was the right numbers and they didn't have anything to change with those. The next line here, the Montpelier State House repointing. There was $219,723 in the GovRec, and you can see in column H, $219,500. So the Senate, the House basically rounded down to the nearest 500.
It doesn't.
You want me to donate to the other group?
Then we have 2 lines here again for State House HVAC and Vermont State Archives that we didn't make any changes in the House. And then this next line item, the Middlesex print and postal. Essentially, this $58,000 is added to the bond capacity for FY 26. That money came from reallocation of various other projects that testimony from BGS basically said, here's some extra money on a line item for a project, we're done with it. You can have it back, and then moved it from there to here. And the feeling was that as this does have print and postal and some archives, we want to make sure the roof is being taken care of, so we don't lose the building for print and posting and have anything ruined because the roof is not taken care of. So that is a highlight because we added money, or the House added money, I should say. And the next couple items, nothing had changed from the GovRec. The very bottom row, because the totals all changed, it is highlighted, but other than that, there's anything different. That's the quick down dirty section 1.
And we're gonna go over all of these again, just so everybody knows. Okay.
Section 3, Agency Human Services, the very first line here is statewide planning, design, and construction for HVAC upgrades at correctional facilities. My understanding from my recollection from when BGS came in, they had previous money from previous years. And if they were to trim $1 million from this project, it's not going to impede any of the work currently in-house going on. So the House did trim $1 million from that one, FY 26 bonded. The next 4 lines are the same as the GovRec, and so we down to the St. Albans Northwest State Correctional Facility roof replacement. Take my notes for that real quick. So, and Rep. Emmons will speak to this tomorrow as well, but there was some money set aside in the past for renovations to the booking area last year, and I believe it was 2.6 million, but don't quote me on that necessarily. So that booking area project is done for as much as we can, but now there is some questions about getting the roof taken care of. So the idea here, is can we take some money from the booking area and use some of that for this upgrade And Cole, I'm speaking way out of turn holler, Cole from BGS, my apologies, former friend. But essentially the idea is there's some language in the bill itself that allows for some transfers of money from the booking to the roof project. So therefore it's roof project, they have taken the money away basically. Then getting to,
But just a question, so when it was 12, or when it was 1.2 million,
Mhm.
was it still the roof?
yes, yeah.
Okay, so we didn't change it from booking to roof.
No, just in last year, if you look, there was money for the booking area, and there's some of that leftover money. And so if we put language in, saying we take money from that project and drop it here, then they crim this here.
Okay. Oh, okay, so that money's still needed, it's just not shown here.
Right, it just happens to be last year's capital.
Okay.
Do we know how much was, left in last year's capital bill?
I can run that report. I don't have.
Oh, yeah. Please do, thank you. Good question.
And Red Evans had a lot of work, so I'll just pull the numbers. Section 4. Here, Sam goes to your point, is where we've taken some of that money, for the bond capacity, for the bond capacity. So the big difference is here. We see the Bennington High School, the very Prospect Heights and the Brattleboro Winston Crowley Center. The committee felt that these requests from the governor would open up the capital bill to other private investors. For those of you who are new to legislature in years past, they had something that is referred to as the deli section. The deli section being people would come and say, hey, I could place an order for $500,000 for this and $50,000 for that. And Rep. Evans had mentioned this felt in summer is kind of like that. We'll bring that for anybody to come. And it may not necessarily be a stapling building, that kind of a feeling. The committee did also feel that what would be in these dollars for, is it capital infrastructure projects or what would actually be for these specific projects? Upstairs.
It's basically taking $3.1 million away from housing in the state of Vermont.
On these 3 lines, yes. I will point out that they had talked about moving that money to be through a grant program. The testimony from the governor's office would be they'd rather not have a grant program. So what they committee decided to do was to, instead of having $3 million for these projects here in the capital bill, instead they would take $2 million and give it to appropriations with the idea that appropriations would earmark that $2 million for to AHCD to be able to have grant programs they could run. They could use it for that housing projects. So in that sense, 1.1 million net loss savings. So that's why you'll see those 3 in the gov reference 3.1 million. Now it's they're all 0. We get to the next line, the roadside historic markers. Essentially, I think in your book, maybe even they talk about.
I can't believe we're taking 10.2 million versus clean water funds out of this bill right here. Oh, Jared, how are you?
Very funny, Senator.
Good to see you, Jared.
Yeah. Timing is everything, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I apologize.
I got it.
I needed a laugh.
What, you don't like Excel spreadsheets?
Good to go here. Good to
Sorry,
go.
I apologize to everyone that's on.
No, it's fine, yeah.
So the roadside historic markers, essentially, the testimony was that they had some markers already in the foundry and needed some money to pay for those. The government not put any money in, so the committee upstairs added $25,000 to help pay for things that were already in the works, from my understanding.
Okay, and then it turned into 50.
My apologies, yes, 25 in FY26 and 25 in FY27.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Explain that again. They already had enough product already. No, they didn't have enough.
They didn't have enough money to pay for the roadside markers.
Okay.
And this has been historically funded for many years in capital bill.
Yeah, we've always had it in there, so yeah.
Yeah, so that's what they decided to put money back in there for that. The next line, the Bennington Battle Monument, maintenance of safety fencing, restoration, planning and design. In last year's capital bill, there was money for fencing, safety fencing around the Bennington Battle Monument. That fencing had been put up. And I believe the total cost was $81,000, something like that. Wind had come and knocked it down just recently, so there was some question about whether that would be covered underneath the company who put it up. They would come back and then fix that or not. With that said, what the testimony was is that they do have a plan in place to work on the Bennington Battle Monument, to dry out the monument. I'm not sure if you've heard or not, but I believe they said it was 66,000 gallons of water soaked into the limestone of the monument. So, but part of getting that fixed would require some funding. So what the committee did was they took the $419,000 that was left over from the fencing, pulled it back during the reallocation process, put it back here and change the wording, if you will, from just safety fencing to also restoration, planning and design, and added some money to it. So it's up to $525,000.
Yeah, added quite a bit of money.
Yeah, so 100,000 left over. So I'll put out to you the money.
Okay.
Section 5, the building communities grants. Essentially, over the years, historically, the capital bill had always done $300,000 a year. For FY 26 and 27, the governor recommended $250,000. So the community felt that they're going to add $50,000 to every single one of these to bring that back up to $300,000 per year. The one big change really, and it doesn't really change much in terms of numbers, but it does change how the spreadsheet works, is the human services and education. They had the human services grants and education grants. And the idea in the past was to split $300,000 up to two $150,000 lots. The idea being that with them split, you can better tell who's using what, and track these a little bit better. But I believe Commissioner always said that they can track it just easily now if they're combined back together. So they're combined together. So we took away the 250,000 for FY 26 and FY 27 and added 300,000 for both FY 26 and 27 for that line item. So nothing really changed for those programs, just changing has been important. But grand total, they didn't add money to it to get them all funded more. Section 6 of the Vermont Veterans Home, there is design and construction for the renovation of the American unit. They testified that there was leftover money from work on the Brandon and Carbon units, and that they would rather have that money being put toward renovation and possibly reconstruction of the American unit. So basically, they had a B and C wing, and take that money and put it into this for the A wing. Later on, I'll show you as well where the that $1.5 million comes from. University of Vermont, Section 7, the construction, renovations, and maintenance. The committee did trim that by a little bit. The idea is that the record said 1.6 million. The committee said only 1.5 million. In part because the 10-year plan that GovRec had after these two years going forward, the University of Vermont had 1.5 million a year every year. And so to kind of rip the band off and just keep down to 1.5 million now, they chose to do that, but also evens it out with what's being given to the Vermont State Colleges.
Okay.
The next section is the Vermont State Colleges. You can see they do have 1.5 million for FY 26, FY 27 for their major maintenance. And then there is the Johnson Central Heating Plan. I know we had lots of testimony yesterday from the commissioner, the chancellor about that. So I didn't do those things, but at the end of the House had kept the government recommendation. So that was that. Section 9, the agency of natural resources. Again, the House kept the same recommendations that the GovRec had.
Yeah, and that's helpful. And we're going to have them in. We haven't had them in yet, so we had a little bit of the water stuff, but we haven't had this whole section.
Section 10 is the clean water. And senators who are new to the committee, you will see that there is $10 million in FY 26 and $10 million in FY 27. Now, in FY 26, it is divided up amongst different programs. In FY 27, it's not. It's just one lump sum at the bottom, $10 million. And that's because the Clean Water Board will make a recommendation. I don't remember when that recommendation comes out, you know, but they'll make that recommendation as to where the fund should go. And so next year's capital, you'll see it broken apart on the different categories here. That's why you will also see one line item that's the Clean Water State revolving fund is blank in FY 26. So as on the spreadsheet, they're going to put money into that FY 27. So we'll make sure it's clear that it is there. And it will earmark money for next year once the Clean Water Board makes recommendations. Otherwise, they didn't make any changes.
Are there any, tell me if I'm missing it. Are there any monies, dollars still left over as far as matching funds and stuff from ARPA monies that we had to expend?
I don't remember if there were monies left over that we had to spend. I know there is money.
We usually had a cash allocation in there to buy down that was like 14-1. Can I?
Yes, no, that's,
Can I ask?
yeah, but I also want you to ask when we have the agency here too.
Yeah, I want you to ask just so I can
Yeah.
do that. If, just to identify yourself.
Sure. Jared Carpenter, Lake Champlain Committee. Senator, in terms of money that is remaining, that has already been allocated in terms of the ARPA
Yeah, so
funds?
because we had like $34 million in there, split up in a couple different funds, and we're using that to buy down projects that you guys,
Yeah,
friends of yours were using and stuff like that. So is there any of them buy down dollars left that you're aware of?
So I think all of the ARPA money has been obligated. I would definitely ask, obviously, the agency to double check that. I think that's all been obligated. However, if you recall, Senator, there was money from
It was the IIJA.
exactly FY 23 to FY 27 that was extra money to
Right.
buy down the IIJ. That's came last 2 years. That came from the capital bill. The 2 years before it came from the budget.
Right.
And money was set aside in the FY 24 budget of $14.5 million.
Right.
That's currently in the House budget to draw down $73.5 million. And that's the last tranche of money for 26 and 27. But it's not in the capital bill, it's in the budget.
Okay.
So we should make sure that that's all set before we're done with this, but
Yeah.
that's a big,
That needs to have a conversation.
yeah,
It's a lot of clean water money.
yeah,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks.
yeah, thank you. Okay,
Section 11, the military, the government numbers, the House kept it the same. We're going to the next page. My apologies for going quickly, Madam Chair.
you're doing great. That's what we asked.
By all means, if something comes up, stop me. We'll talk through it. Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets, the renovations to the Vermont building. They made it.
Yeah, and we looked at, they came in, yeah.
Again, I don't need to go for that.
That's Springfield, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's before my pass.
Yeah.
That's where the building is. That is, they let us on every. Section 13, Department of Public Safety. So the Rutland Field Station, the governor recommended was $4 million in FY 27 for bonding. And the committee, felt that if they had freed up the money in FY 26, they could get started on that. So essentially took the $4 million from FY 27 and just pulled forward $2 million. So they split it from $4 million in 1 year to be $2 million in 2 years, basically. So that's why you'll see that change there. Total dollar amounts did not change. Just which year they're allocated did change.
And the source didn't change.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see here. We now get down to the judiciary. So you can see Newport Courthouse replacement planning and design. That $1 million is what I would recommend, but I don't recall exactly what the testimony was, as to why they had removed the $1 million.
I'm aware of that. We're working on a lot of moving parts up there, and we're not really ready to make a decision as far as to go out and buy any properties at this point in time. We're trying to get them. In fact, I met with the new mayor of Newport, along with some select board members and some players in the community, and we are trying to formulate a plan. In fact, judiciary does have kind of a back of the napkin plans, and I've talked to BGS about it as well. We are not looking active, well, I should say not looking actively, but we prefer for the State House to be where it's at and to just renovate to where we want it to be. It's in the perfect location, and we, on our strategic plan at Newport, we're trying to keep our downtown intact, and it's important. So I am a supporter of losing that $1 million, which sounds kind of funny, but yeah.
So will you need it in the future?
I think there's, at some point in time, there were still some monies around, but remember when the governor had said before in the past, there might be some availables in the second biennium. Additional above and beyond, I think that probably if we needed that, we know where we can go and get it for.
Okay, great, thank you.
Just
The next one, I have the Lamoille County Courthouse. During testimony, and then determined that there was no money set aside in the capital bill for installation of the power, backup power system. And so the House Committee added $190,000. That dollar amount was given to them from the judicial branch for that money. So that was added there. Then we get to go to the next page. This is where all the reallocations happen. The Senator was to your point earlier, as to where the money went. There's some of this, we've gotten money back in different projects. So what the process is the governor's office goes through and looks at the whole project in BGS and wherever else and says, hey, this project, are you done with it? The money left over, are you using it? Do you need it? If not, we're gonna take it back and reallocate it and put the tax dollars to work. So anything that's not shaded is what the governor recommended had been. Anything that is shaded is stuff that we have found in the House Committee now. Why the Grant Committee like that? It's just to match the language of the bill. I want to make sure that it's easier to read the bill. So we can go from top to bottom, section A1, A2, A3, so and so on. We've got a reason for that. Now the shaded sections, the process essentially is I get a report given to me about all of the capital bill projects that are in play, really. Anything, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years or older. And what we do is we reach out to different agencies and say, hey, I noticed you've got these 5 different projects that are still out there. They're still open. Is there money that we can get back? Sometimes it's not very much, like the Agency of Transportation, $112.31. Sometimes it is $1 million or more. So with that process, the House Committee has a subcommittee that reaches out and we work with the different agencies to say, what are you doing with this money? You need it. We can use it, bring it back in here. Let's reallocate it and get it going. So I will point out a couple of different places here. One of them is the 144, I think it is. It has various projects from DGS. The $58,279 number, that was being used in that middle section. And also the $1.5 million in cash from the design and restoration of the Brandon and Cardinal units. That $1.5 million is being used for the American Navy. So that's where some of these had direct 1-for-1 went from here to another project in the bill. So all told, it would be a total of $6.7 million in reallocated dollars between bonding and capital.
And then Scott, before we go, the 108 Cherry, that's not the building that we sold, right? Is this making repairs to the garage? And there's a building that we sold that I thought was on Cherry.
we haven't sold it yet.
But is that the building that we're trying to sell?
Yes.
The garage?
Yeah. What line is it?
It's
The top.
136. There's
Yeah.
2.
That is the one that we are trying to sell. And as far as, and I hate to speak for BPS, but I don't think that they're looking to do any more repairs to it. And so that would be the bonded dollars that some of the repairs that they probably had bonded.
Okay, so they're canceling that.
And at one point in time, Madam Chair, I think we've probably gotten out of that building as far as repairs and stuff. As you remember, there was a substantial amount of monies to that they had started to park on that before
Yeah.
repairs. And I would imagine this is probably the last little bit of it, but who knows? But yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've taken like millions out of there as far as what was gonna be in the past capital bills.
And I think it's empty now, the building?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, so we have to obviously talk to BHS about it.
One thing I'll point out in section 17, you'll see,
Well, you're welcome.
Okay.
in section 17, you'll see like written sentence on that line. It says BGS, then a number. Then a little later, you'll see like ACCD and a number. That number is the department ID. That's how we can track it. So I can look at this and interpret this and say, the way BGS does their depth IDs, they actually put in first the year, then the actual act number, and the section number. So we can actually track it down and see where that was when it actually happened. Other departments do their depth IDs a little different. Based upon these, I can tell you what year the money was appropriated and how we did it.
So 2004, that was 20 years on the first
On
one.
the very first one, I believe that's 2000 and the act is 42.
Oh,
So I think it's
well,
20 was for Act 2020. And then they have a 0. And then they have 42 is the act of
Oh,
section
okay.
2.
good, that makes more sense.
So over 20 years ago,
5 years.
I can pull the actual matrix so that you figure this out.
Well, just ask them when they
Yeah.
come here, yeah. Okay.
Other agencies do a little bit differently, but just if you're curious to know where the appropriation came from, which act I can pull it and find it and tell you.
So the ones that say 17. Beginning, number 145, line 145.
Yeah, so 17 would be 2017, Act 84.
Okay. All right,
Then we get to some of those, like the agency of transportation, it starts with 810, that's not 1981. They do things a little bit different than BGS, they actually start with their business unit number first. So it wasn't 1981, that just happens to be their business unit.
okay.
I'm very proud of our crappy code by them, after looking at this for 3 years.
So you need to leave it.
I said 3, but I've already been in communication with them, I'm gonna be late because I'd rather get through this whole thing.
Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you. I'd rather get through this with you guys first.
Thank you.
So here on the back page, we talked about this the other day when I was here. The total amount of money that would have been given to the capital bill. It's all broken down here. So the bonding capacity, $50 million a year for FY 26 and FY 27. The bond premium, in FY 26 is at almost $7 million. So a total of $107 million in bonding capacity. But that does not include all those reallocations or anything like that. And then we have the annual transfer of cash. And that $14.8 million is the up to 4% annual transfer if we talked about it before. Then there was some fund interest and then the fund balance from previous year. Essentially that is just money that was left over in the cash account that we're going to use this year instead of last year. So the very, very, very bottom line here, we can see that the total capital projects, a total of $61.6 million in expenses. And that's balanced by the funding, which is through, I'm looking at column G by the back. Through the funding of $61.9 million, or a difference of $350,000. So what we're saying here in FY 26 in the bonded dollars, we're spending $350,000 less in projects than we have in funding available to us. Then in column H, the cash account, we can see instead of $14.8 million, only $7.5 million is being transferred in. And the idea behind that was that has cash available for corporations to do things with. The capital bill basically, it gives the intent to appropriation that we want to spend on cash. They actually make the appropriations. But that is the $7 million, give or take that.
7.33864, just not, not be exact, like that.
I'll look at everything. And then, so basically the same thing, total capital projects. The expenses, 11.3 million, and total capital funding for cash, 11.3 million in FY 26. Then FY 27, the total projects are 50,350,000. And the total funding is only 50 million, so we have a overspend of $350,000. Less than 300 spend in 1 year, it's a 2-year bill, underspend in 1 year, overspend in another, it all balances out 000. And ta-da. We get it through and funded it school day.
We got
Yeah, I'm gonna wanna know 169 that, fund interest and then fund balance, because fund balance is more theoretical, but because not all of this gets bonded at the
Well-
same time.
What happened to the fund balance is,
Or no, that's not theoretical, that's actual, because that's
Right.
cash.
and in part, if you recall, there's a cash fund A and a cash fund B.
Yeah.
Cash fund B is, it doesn't show up on the spreadsheet, it kind of lives in the corporation's bill. And last year there was $1 million that we had saved from, not doing some construction on the Vale and Green Halls at the State Colleges. And we had said to them last year, the line item was 7.5 million. They're not gonna do renovations. They're only gonna use 6.5 million, so there's an extra $1 million in sub-account B that didn't get spent, so that's left over for us to use this year. In fact, in the capital bill, you will see some language that transfers it from sub-account B to sub-account A for us to use here. So it's relevant.
Okay, are we happy with those titles, A and B? I guess we're keeping them, it
It's
gets
short, yeah.
confusing,
Yeah.
nothing we're gonna change.
yeah,
When you
well, we
look at
just
it-
got them last time,
Yeah.
No, we haven't.
last session,
Yeah, no, it's been that way since it was set up, since that cash fund first went into existence.
which is, When?
2000, it was the first year, so, it was when Chair Benny was here, so it was the
Oh,
second
2001.
year. It was the second
It's
year.
not very-
Right. So what is that, 2025, so 2021, 22. 2022, and that's, set up by, Senator Kitchen.
And the
okay,
tech-
so that was right before I got it.
And the technical term is the cash fund for infrastructure, and then the other one's the other infrastructure essentials. And I have to look at what it says, but
Yeah,
it's easier for sub-account A and sub-account B.
if you have if there are, I guess there are
If you
definitions,
look
so
at
if
the
you could
bill-
please send us those definitions.
In the bill, I think it doesn't actually spell them out.
Okay,
The statute has capital infrastructure sub-account and then other infrastructure,
Yeah.
essential investments and reserves sub-account.
okay,
So
I
that's
think
the
the statute-
OE.
The statute doesn't say A and B, but it's usually say A and B.
They're gonna do the acronym of OE. It makes perfect sense.
maybe you can send, if there's any additional language, that would be helpful.
Getting late, Senator Payne.
All right. All right, well, this is really
Sorry.
helpful, thank you. I'm glad you're able to be here and do it the whole
As we
time.
go
Yeah.
through, when questions pop up,
Oh, questions will pop up.
yeah, I'm happy to, again, I don't want to speak to the other committee's intent, but I can tell you kind of what happened in the room. And Representative Evans, some of the same thing I did, but this will give me 24 hours to kind of think about questions you want to ask.
Right, and so if you could plan to be with us for most of the next week, 2 weeks and a half, that'd be good.
I'm here every afternoon.
Good.
So.
Perfect.
Overnight. Just in case we wake up in the middle of the night. and-
Yeah, they got a
You
question.
can have weekends off.
Then knock on the door to pay like I'm giving. And I
All right.
do apologize for running unless there's anything last
No, you
minute.
did well.
No, otherwise I'll run to my next meeting and.
Thank
you.
Thank you, appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. Always is hanging out with them.
Good. Hopefully
Say
you'll
that-
say that in a
I think you
couple
said
weeks.
that's all of a sudden.
All the senators, but never that. Thank you again.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. So we have folks scheduled for almost all of this. Almost. Yeah, BGS obviously is a major player. Yeah, I mean, we're developing the agenda for next week. We have it pretty well done, I think. Kayla?
I think.
Yeah, so we'll get that out, a draft out today so that you can see what we have coming. Are there any areas that you wanna maybe have folks come in more than once? I mean, BGS is gonna be here more than once, for sure.
Just get them that and.
And the water's a big one, and that we'll probably need them more than once. We'll have, Chair Emmons tomorrow, and she can go through all of, hopefully, she'll be able to stay here for long enough to go through all of it. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
we're good?
We're good.
Okay. So we are adjourned.